All right. I'm not going to hit any panic buttons. I tweeted this out. I'll say it on the show. Give me 25 games before any legitimate concern comes from me. But this is not a good look. Losing to the Orlando Magic the way the Warriors did, not a good look. And there were a lot of mistakes there. A lot of Kerr's decision making is questionable. A lot of the performances from individuals are just not great. And I got Brandon Cadiz joining me. We go way back, and you host a podcast called Dub Strength or Strength in Numbers. I apologize.
Numbers,
The Twitter account is Dub Strength. You host a fantastic podcast called Strength in Numbers, which the Warriors do not have right now. But we're going to break all of this down next. This is Locked On Warriors.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. That's PrizePicks.com and use the promo code Locked On. You can follow Brandon Cadiz on Twitter at bcadiz0. That's BCADIZ0. The host of the Strength in Numbers podcast. You can follow me, Cyrus Saatsaz, on Twitter at DogSurfRoadshow. Brandon, give me your first immediate reaction to the Golden State Warriors losing a frustrating game, 130 to 129. Your reaction and thoughts, sir, and great to see you.
Great to see you, Cyrus. Thanks for having me on. First off, man, a disaster. I saw you tweeted out that this is probably the worst stretch in Steve Kerr's career, and I mean, how can you argue that? You start off the season as defending champions. You constantly have double-digit leads, and you blow it in the second half. You're still a great third-quarter team, but that fourth quarter graphic that NBC Sports had up is that the Warriors are the second worst team in the fourth quarter point differential-wise, only San Antonio worse than them. So that speaks numbers. You got veterans on your team. San Antonio is a young team. So you just compare those two things, and I know you said 25 games for you. For me, it's a little bit less, probably a 15-game sample size, and they're 12th right now in the Western Conference.
Well, if it's 15 games, Brandon, that's coming up soon. I mean, so I imagine like if I'm holding up the the metaphorical button here, like I'm still chilling. I'm sitting back. I've just seen this team go through so many wars, and look, they've got the bench is just a massive question mark. But if you're looking at 15 games, like, dude, your finger's kind of lurking toward that button. Like, so that means you're stressing a little bit right now. And by the way, I see all the chat, all the comments in there. We feel you. Okay. We're going to break down this game. I'm not panicking at all. But if you're saying 15 games, let me ask you this to start things off. What about the team do you think they can improve on just immediately? Like what can they do to turn things around fast? Because I see quite a few things they should and could be doing. What are you seeing so far in terms of mistakes that they could fix like overnight?
I think what Dub Nation and Warriors fans are really concerned about is the DNPs from Jonathan Kuminga. You got to see him in there, even if you don't play him at that 4 or 3 spot. Let's go a little bit of small ball from the playoffs last season. We saw Jonathan Kuminga in spurts against the Denver Nuggets have success. Let's put him in that small ball 5 and see what he can do at that position. You're 3-6 and you have nothing to lose right now.
Absolutely, man. And Nick Angstad, who hosts the Locked On Mavericks show, he asked me on Twitter, he goes, why do you think this is Kerr's worst stretch? And here's for starters, I'll point this out. The Warriors routinely are the best third quarter team in the NBA. In fact, there's a stat that came out recently that showed they are the greatest third quarter team in NBA history based on plus minus over a stretch of how many years the Warriors have been dominating. But this year, and that's always, by the way, been the argument that I've always had to support Steve Kerr, because a lot of times people are quick to start criticizing him And my first reaction to Steve Kerr criticism and all my years of defending this man, and I still defend him now, in no way, shape, or form am I calling for his head, all right? Like, please don't confuse me being critical of him with me wanting him gone. That is not true at all. But look, man, you're the head coach of an NBA team. You know, a little criticism is healthy. It's okay. It's normal. But I'll throw this out there immediately. For a team that routinely makes awesome halftime adjustments, right? That symbolizes great coaching. You're making adjustments at the half. You're pinpointing whatever it is that you're missing in the first half of the game. You're making those adjustments. You're making those changes. And routinely, the Warriors show in the third quarter that they're making proper adjustments and kicking ass as a result of that. But tonight was just an example of that not being the case this year. And look, we're recording this live right after the Warriors lost to the Magic. So on tomorrow's show, I'll have some more data for you. But they got outscored in the third quarter tonight, 43-33. I think they were leading this game at one point, 91-75. Don't quote me on that, but it was really close to that. And then all of a sudden, they just started giving it up. And so when you talk about this being the worst stretch of Kerr's career, I'm looking at the fact that they're not making those halftime adjustments. I'm looking at the fact that for some reason, Kerr is giving his veterans like a ton of minutes when you have this young bench that you have to develop and give reps to. The Kuminga DNPs are starting to drive me insane. I'm starting to go a little crazy here because I don't understand the why of it. I'm not hearing him being questioned about it that much. And it's one thing if your team is winning, right? It's one thing if you're not playing them going, we have better players to put in there instead that'll give us victories. Okay, fine, right? You're going to shut me up if you're winning games. But when you're losing games, when you're 3-6 now, when you're 0-5 on the road, you have a 4-game a road losing streak and losing streak overall, that tells me whatever you're doing is not working. So sitting Kuminga on the bench is just baffling to me. I don't understand the logic of it, especially when he averaged 16.9 points minutes per game last year, and now he's down to, I think, below 10. I guess let me ask you this, Brandon, because I'm going crazy over this Kuminga thing. In your opinion, why is Kerr not playing him? Like, is it something in practice you think? What do you think it is? Because I'm going insane over this. What are your thoughts?
The only thing that I could think of is, and this is just all speculation.
Yes.
It has to be an off the court issue. I mean, the only thing that I can point to was going back to that summer league game. He had a bad game. His attitude afterwards, came off the court, didn't shake hands with the players afterwards. If that's a type of rookie or, second year guy kind of issue that he's having off the court, you got to fix that. And especially tomorrow, the Warriors on a back-to-back. If they rest a lot of starters and some bench guys, I expect Jonathan Kuminga to see minutes tomorrow night. And I've said this on my podcast here, and looking back at numbers last year, a lot of people on Warriors Twitter wanted to go crazy and say, man, you have the intangibles, you have the skill set of like a Giannis Antetokounmpo, and looking at Giannis's rookie stats, compared it to Jonathan Kuminga's rookie stats in limited minutes too for Kuminga, had already better rookie stats than Giannis in his rookie year. So I want to see that potential. I want him to develop. You look over the other side of the bay, if we're comparing sports here, the 49ers plugged in Trey Lance, got him to, see a couple of reps. This is what the Warriors need to do in Jonathan Kuminga.
Sorry, I agreed. I don't know how you're going to ever develop him if you don't play him. The Santa Cruz Warriors start their season tomorrow. Curious. I mean, he's not going to be playing for him this weekend because he's with the team right now. But if you're not going to play him at all, you're going to have to send him down to Santa Cruz. I'm looking at some of the comments here. Look, for example, Darren Lays writes 30 more free throw attempts. In fact, I believe it was 31 that the Magic had. 31 more free throw attempts than the Warriors. That you're not going to win games with that type of margin. I mean, you take that away, the Warriors lost this game by 1. So that's a huge issue. Rebel DeSounds writes, Steve Kerr, a bunch of question marks. Wiggins missed a wide open layup.
Yeah.
True. But Steve Kerr also was called for a technical. He was frustrated probably because of the foul calls. That technical was the difference in the game. Him and Wiseman got 2 Ts. Those are 2 free throws that made the damn difference in the game. But you're right. The Wiggins layup was awful. And Wiggins, after a really strong start, has been kind of struggling a little bit. He's a little inconsistent lately. Ray writes, Warriors are still in a championship hangover. There is something to that. And that is why I'm giving this team a good 25 games before I start really being, freaking out. But this is crazy to me. When we come back, we're going to break down a lot of stuff. I have something to reveal about Kuminga as well, in terms of the off-court stuff, because something might have in fact happened. I'll touch on that in just a moment. First, got to give some love to one of my favorite sponsors of Locked On, and that's PrizePicks. Let me get this cool overlay going here for the visuals for the YouTube show. Brandon, have you played PrizePicks yet, by the way?
No, I have not.
This is legal in California. We got an election coming up with Props 26 and 27. That doesn't matter. You can play PrizePicks regardless. It's legal now. They have super fast payouts. The withdraw, like the putting money in and out, that process is super easy. And it's all about individual over-unders, right? You're betting on 2 to 5 players and deciding whether or not they're going to score more or less than whatever figure they present to you. Like Stephen Curry tonight, for example, I just forgot to make my PrizePicks bets tonight, which I'm kicking myself for. But I'm guessing Stephen Curry probably was at 29.5. And you bet over that or under that. That's it. You could also do it with rebounds, steals, assists, blocks. You can do combinations of these numbers. And again, the payout is super easy. That's one of the many favorite things about PrizePicks that I personally love. And if you download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com right now to sign up and play daily fantasy sports, first-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match of up to $100 if you just use the promo code Locked On. Deposit $100. PrizePicks will give you $100. And look, if you don't have $100, put in 50. They'll match that with 50 of their own. You just got to use the promo code Locked On at sign up for an instant deposit match of up to $100.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen today. After us, check out Locked On Sports today. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow Brandon Cadiz, host of Strength in Numbers. Awesome podcast, my man. You can follow him on Twitter at bcadiz0. That's B. Cadiz is spelled C-A-D-I-Z and the number 0. So Jonathan Kuminga, and look, like Michael Kiko here writes, for example, Kuminga is not good enough. Stop it. How do you know he's not good enough, Michael? And this is my issue. Regardless of whatever your opinion is of Jonathan Kuminga right now, if you don't play him, you're never going to realize what his potential is. You're never going to learn what he eventually could become. And on top of that, what they're doing now isn't working. They're still losing games. Again, it's one thing if they were winning games. There would be no reason to complain about it. They're losing. And I agree. Rebel That Sounds writes, when Kuminga plays, he has to take advantage of those minutes. You're absolutely right. But again, for some reason last year, he was averaging 17 minutes per game. He started 3 playoff games. And now he gets DNP night after night after night. There was a comparison tonight because Jonathan Kuminga was the number 7 pick in the 2021 NBA draft. Franz Wagner was the number 8 pick, right?
Yep.
So in a matchup where we should have been excited over seeing the number 7 pick and the number 8 pick dueling it out, and Franz Wagner had a great game tonight. 37 minutes he was given. 19 points on the night, shot 7 for 12 from the field, and then Jonathan Kuminga gets a DNP. I will say this, Jonathan Kuminga did do something, and this happened I learned about this when I was at Chase the last homestand or the last time they were at home, one of the last times. Kuminga did do something that I can't reveal it, which is really annoying, but I can't. It would just cause a lot of chaos. But what he did, I don't know how you define it, but if the Warriors found out about it, I could understand them not being cool with it and frowning upon it. And I've talked to my colleagues wondering if he's in the doghouse for doing this. And all I've heard is, yeah, if the Warriors learned about what he did, he could be in the doghouse for this. And so there is that possibility. And I wish I could get into the what. I just can't, unfortunately. But I can't think of any other reason. I just can't, man. And it's driving me crazy, dude. It really is. Would you play him, Brandon? Give me your thought. Like,
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, even if you do play him and he's not the player that we thought he was, worst case scenario, if the Warriors look at the scenario, if they want to ship him out, that only gives an audience for the rest of the league to see what he has. So it's not working right now by not playing him. So by playing him, at least we can all see what he has. And, going through these comments here in the chat, just being able to see that, yeah, sure, Kuminga still has the issue of just putting his head down and driving to the rim and drawing those offensive fouls. But he just has to see reps. That's the main thing. He played with the G League Ignite down here in Walnut Creek and then got drafted. He's a young guy. He needs to see reps. I can't stress that enough with Kuminga and Wiseman himself.
Yeah, and he brings tremendous athleticism. Steve Kerr referenced that he sees him as a power forward. The Warriors are routinely the smaller team out there. That's always annoyed me to no end. And Matt Brotherton, sorry, it was another comment of yours I was going to showcase real quick that I can't find now, but here it is. Off court. And again, it was no crime. He didn't break any laws, but he did something that I could see him going in the doghouse for a little while for that. And I wish I could reveal more, but I can't. Maybe some other journalist who's more of an insider than me can delve into that more if they choose to. But I can't think of any other reason why he's not playing. And even for the instance I'm referring to, I don't know if it would be worthy of sitting him out this much. I just don't know what the hell's going on, man. Stephen Curry is having such a fantastic start to the season. He had another 39 points tonight to go along with 9 assists. He leads the team in points, assists, and rebounding on the year, which is absurd. I hate that his effort's being wasted, man. Let me ask you this, Brandon. Mm-hmm. What are some positives that you see from the Warriors so far? Because there are some positives. What are some positives you see?
Yeah, immediately my mind goes to tonight. There was a lot of talk of Klay Thompson slumping. A lot of people saying that, hey, maybe lower his minutes a little bit. He's still trying to find that groove, but it was very promising. I tweeted out that, hey, it's as simple as once Klay starts hitting his shots, it opens everything up for the Warriors. We saw great efforts by Kevon Looney on the offensive glass early on. Again, that was the thing that changed in the second half. Not as much hustle from the Warriors team on the O boards, in my opinion, if you're just looking at the eye test. But yeah, they're very different from a first half team and a second half team. That's something they need to clean up. But early on, effort, Steph Curry and Klay Thompson's 3-point shooting, of course, opens everything up for them.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Klay Thompson had his best game of the year, season high 27 points. He actually looked light-footed. It was the best he looked this season, in my humble opinion. Went 7 for 15 from beyond the arc, but he also just completely butchered that potential game-winning shot. That looked like a bungled play to me. I'm referencing the final play of the game. Stephen Curry gets the ball, chance for a game winner, but the Magic, of course, sniffed that out from the beginning. So he gives it to Klay. Klay puts up a baseline 18-footer, and I don't even know, did that even hit the rim? I guess it kind of did, but yeah, man, it is. Yeah. But this is just frustrating, man. This is a very frustrating. And by the way, Gilbert writes, not gonna lie, I miss my former co-host on this show, even though he's a negative Nancy. Why do you miss him? What do you miss about him, Gilbert? Expand on that, please. I really don't mind. I definitely don't shy away from anything. The foul situation is really gnarly to me, and I think a huge part of that is the Warriors just don't have the urgency defensively. I don't, part of that could be the championship hangover, but part of that is, I don't know what it is. All I do know is that every time the Warriors have played a game this year, their opponents are shooting wide open threes. Wide open. The Magic are one of the worst 3-point shooting teams in the NBA. And even they were lighting it up. They shot 13 for 30 from beyond the arc tonight, 43.3%. And for some reason, and this is another, ding on Kerr, because Mike Brown is gone. You're obviously feeling the effect of that. Steve Kerr needs to be putting a much bigger emphasis on these players sticking to their man like glue. I mean, this is fundamental defense. Stick to your man. Don't let him get even like a foot of space from you. I do not understand defensively why they're letting opposing players have so much space. And what that does is oftentimes you have Warriors defenders like catching up to the defender. So they're jumping and they're getting caught in pump fakes, which results in fouls. You're seeing a lot of reaching calls because, again, they're not sticking to their man like glue. And that space gives your opponent a huge head start to either drive to the basket. And as a result, Warriors defenders are creating contact, being called for fouls. Again, I talked about the pump fakes, where if you're a defender trying to catch up to the offensive player, you are susceptible to jumping up for a pump fake. You're susceptible to trying to get the block regardless and not being in great position. So your body's out of control. I don't know. It just drives me crazy, man. Your thoughts on just this whole abysmal defense, which is ranked worst in the NBA, and the free throw disparity, which is just really plaguing them. Your thoughts?
Yeah, what are we now? Nine games in, and every single game they've allowed over 100 points. That's definitely the highest priority on my panic meter right now. And Cyrus, it's as simple as you saying you got a KYP, you got to know your personnel. And Jalen Suggs, a really bad three-point shooter, 5 for 22 coming into tonight, hit 2 big threes at the end of it. Now, when you look at that, he started to heat up, taking a negative step, being able to wind up and just drive to the lane. You give him that open space. And I think that was the game plan, to let him shoot those 3-pointers just because how bad he was. But once he starts hitting those, you got to respect the space. And even like Paolo Banchero, man, he was lighting it up there in that third quarter. It just created a lot of open looks for this Magic team, which is very concerning. Like you said, if you're doing this against a really bad team, imagine when you take on Giannis and the Bucks, what's going to happen.
I honestly, I feel like that, what they're struggling with the most is just their perimeter defense is cold for number one. And then transition defense is right behind that. And you're seeing the absence of Mike Brown playing a huge part in this defense, just being utterly abysmal. What is your take on James Wiseman, man? There was a play tonight that I'm seeing you get some traction on social media. It was James Wiseman was setting up a screen for Stephen Curry. It was a very poor screen to begin with. It was basically Wiseman. Look, Wiseman is clearly like most comfortable in the pick and roll. That is like his set. That is what he wants. Unfortunately, that's not what the Warriors do often. The Warriors are much more about split actions, a variation of the triangle offense, constant motion offensively to cause chaos on the defensive side. And Wiseman, he set this screen for Steph that was basically set up like a pick and roll, but it was a horrible screen. It didn't work at all. And then Wiseman rolled to the rim and Curry didn't feed him the ball. And then Wiseman looked frustrated. Like he was upset that Steph didn't feed it to him. And then you can see Steph frustrated because it was a horrible screen. That's not good, man. What are your thoughts on James Wiseman? Look, he's young. This would have been his senior year in college. He obviously missed all of last season. His freshman year, and he only played 3 college games. So experience is something he desperately needs, just like Kuminga. But tonight was not a great look for him. Your thoughts on James Wiseman?
My thoughts on James Wiseman, honestly, it changes every single game, just like this Warriors team with their inconsistency. But you want to go with the bread and butter of James Wiseman, and that's being able to attack the rim, be that lob threat, right? Like we said coming into the year, if he just becomes that role guy that we saw during his stint there with the G League Ignite, like a JaVale McGee type of situation where he catches and he throws it down. Now we want him to develop, so he needs to have those necessary skills of being able to adapt, like you said, with those split actions and not just be a pick and roll type of guy. the thing that really concerns me from him too is on the rebounding side, he jumps too early or he jumps too late. He has these 7-foot arms that he just misses by a couple of inches, and I just don't get it from James Wiseman right now.
Yeah, I'm with you. And again, he's so young. And Oaktown A writes the saying on Wiseman, the starters are not making winning plays. I do want to push back on that because when you look at the plus minus for the starters, they're dominating. I know tonight might not have been the greatest example because they were largely responsible for giving up a huge lead. But all in all, this season, the starters they can't be put to task here for being the reason why they're struggling. Oaktown, you did add something that is true. Dre missed a late free throw, and that was after that monster slam.
Yeah,
he just did not finish that 3-point play, which is so frustrating. Brandon, tomorrow, the Pelicans, Jesus Christ, man. I just get grumpy when the Warriors play like this, dude. It's just like, it's almost like trauma from my younger years of those decades of just abysmal, just horrid play. Tomorrow, the Warriors play the Pelicans, and I'm guessing this is a road trip that could not finish fast enough for this team. In my opinion, this is just my opinion that I'm expressing here. I want to see the Warriors rest their veterans, and I just want to see the young players play. Because if you're going to lose games, I'd rather have you lose games with your young players gaining experience. I want Moses Moody to have 35 minutes. I want Jonathan Kuminga to have 30 minutes. I want James Wiseman to have 30 minutes. I want Jordan Poole to have 30 to 35 minutes. Although he's getting his minutes. He didn't have a great game tonight, by the way. I'll break that down in just a second. But I want the youth out there logging heavy time. I want Patrick Baldwin Jr. out there. I actually think he would be helping right now. I want Ryan Rollins getting some experience. This is a kid that has been touted for this incredible wingspan, a great maturity on both sides of the ball, a two-way player. I want youth in that Pelicans game tomorrow. Do you agree with that sentiment, or do you disagree with that?
Yeah, when I'm just looking at the schedule ahead of time, Cyrus, especially here on the back-to-back, I would have to say actually that I think I would rest these guys and play the young guys in the following games. You get the Kings 2 out of the next 3 games. You have the Kings, the Cavs, and then you play the Kings back there in Sacramento. I think the second time or the first side of that Kings matchup, you can rest those guys. I would actually want to see maybe just rest Klay Thompson there tomorrow, just coming off, his injuries. But I would still like to see them mesh together and play with the minutes off of the bench with the core. Because what I did like, though, was Looney with JaMychal Green. I think that rotation worked, and Moody with Wiseman to be able to gain that chemistry with the big three. So I really just want to see more minutes from them, but with the veterans as well.
Jordan Poole tonight, he's had an inconsistent season so far. What I mean by that is one game he'll give you like 24. You're optimistic, and then the next game he has a night like this where he scores 11 points. He's 1 for 5 from deep. He's only 4 for 12 from the field. His defense was shoddy. Some games he's actually playing decent defense. Not tonight. On the season, he's averaging 16.8 points per game. What are your thoughts on Jordan Poole and how he's playing so far in year one of actually next year's extension, but just the season as a whole?
Yeah, inconsistency. He started off hot, and like you said, these past 2 games, and I think it's definitely like a mental type of scenario right now, right? The NBA memo with the whole carrying thing, and Jordan Poole's game, just in terms of shiftiness and those moves, he's going to palm it a little bit and carry it a little bit. So I think he has to adjust to that new rule change, similar to how James Harden had to a couple of years ago with that gather step. So I think once Poole gets that figured out, I think we can see more consistent play from Mr. Poole himself.
There's a comment here, and I agree with you, by the way. Michael Kiko writes, JaMychal Green is fouling like crazy. He certainly did tonight. I haven't done my research on how he's doing all season, but he got called for 5 personal fouls in 16 minutes. Let me look at the personal fouls here. Wiseman got called for 3 personal fouls. Kevon Looney got called for 5 personal fouls. Draymond Green fouled out. I've been saying on the show for a few days now, I actually would love your opinion on this. Statistically speaking, Draymond Green is not having a great year. And what I mean by that is I actually did the research in terms of individual matchups. And entering tonight, opposing players were shooting 43.4% when matched up on Draymond, which is not great. I was hoping for a number closer to like the 30s. And I feel like what's so symbolic of Draymond not being the same defender is that you don't hear anyone talking about him as being an elite defensive player who might be a defensive player of the year candidate, for example. He's the heart and soul of this defense. It starts and ends with him. And the Warriors have the worst defense in the NBA right now. What are you seeing from Draymond, man? Am I crazy saying this? Because again, I'm watching him a lot. My eyes are stuck on him when the Warriors are playing defense. And what I'm seeing is players blowing by him. I'm seeing players shoot over him because sometimes he's late to get his hands up or he doesn't get his hands up at all. I know the Warriors need him. I'm not trying to hate on him at all. But, I mean, he set such a high standard for defense. I mean, this is someone that I revere as being one of the 3 greatest defensive players ever in the history of the game. And he doesn't this year look like that. Do you think I'm talking crazy, Brandon? Your thoughts?
I think it's definitely a factor of the team defense as a whole. Like Draymond Green can't carry the entire load. So I feel like he's getting affected definitely there on the defensive end as well. Draymond can only do so much, especially coming off the back injuries and that entire situation that he dealt with last year. What I will say about Draymond Green that I've noticed just from the eye test this season is he's definitely more opportunistic when it comes to the dribble handoff, the fake dribble handoff, going to the rim, shot a couple of threes and made it this season. So the offensive side is looking a lot better than it already did last season, in my opinion. But just going back to the whole defense thing, yeah, that's a great. He's definitely not the elite defender that we saw a couple of years ago, or if even you throw it back to his defensive player of the year candidacy type of year. Yeah. But the defense goes with the entire team, and it's not just on Draymond.
I hear you, man. Oh, I absolutely agree with you there. And it's not Dre's fault that teams are routinely just shooting wide open threes. They're just wide open. And I'm yelling at my TV now when this happens. It's pissing me off, dude. On the next episode of Strength in Numbers, Brandon, what are you going to talk about, dude? Like like if you were hosting tonight instead of me, like what would have been your theme? What would have been your focus of your show? Because this is a wreck, man. This is not good.
Yeah, definitely defense and the rotation. For example, crunch time, when you got to be able to sacrifice offense and defense at the right situations. For example, Ty Jerome, you need him in there when you're down. You need some 3-pointers. If you want a defensive point guard in, put in Moses Moody to be able to shut these other guys down. And, Steve Kerr earlier I guess a couple of weeks ago said he needed that ball handler, that playmaker type of guy to be that third guard with Poole and Curry. That's when you put Ty Jerome in. Honestly, now looking back at this whole defensive issue type of thing, I've said on my podcast before that I think when Andre Iguodala and Dante DiVincenzo get those minutes, that they'll help this Warriors team right now. Because Dante DiVincenzo, you look back at his stats in Sacramento and in Milwaukee, pretty solid defensive guy. I said on my show that I think he could have been a perfect GP2 replacement. He can cover the full 94 if you want him to. And Andre Iguodala, just having him on the court to mentor the other guys defensively as well, I think they'll really see the spark in defense coming once Dante and Andre are back into this lineup.
Absolutely. Why don't we hear from Steve Kerr? This is a clip that just came out from the post-game press conference where Kerr is alluding to what I think we all agree is a necessary change in rotations. Here's Steve Kerr.
So we set a terrible tone. We've done that pretty much all year, and we're going to have to make some adjustments, make some changes. We've had a look. We've had 9 games now, so we've had a decent look at combinations, and so it's time to try something different.
What does that potentially mean, do you think, to the rotation? I mean, is that Kuminga, or is that what you're talking about, like changing things?
Oh, everybody's going to get a chance to play. Yeah. I mean, let me finish. Yeah, we've got guys who are, dying to get on the floor, and we've got to find combinations that click, and so we'll discuss that as a staff, and we'll figure that out. So we set a terrible tone.
Sorry, there he goes. Yeah, you did set a terrible tone, and I just wish he wouldn't wait till now to start making changes. I mean, it's been obvious that there's been numerous serious issues plaguing this team. I'm still trying to understand why Kuminga gets DNP'd night after night. Makes no damn sense. Patrick Baldwin Jr. looked amazing in preseason. I know it's just preseason, but for some reason, I don't understand this like kid glove approach, this like porcelain doll approach Kerr has towards rookies and young players. Like Franz Wagner tonight, he's only in his second year. He's the same age as Kuminga and Moody, but he's out there playing 30 tonight. He played 37 minutes and had 19 points. Why can't Warriors rookies get that level of minutes? I understand that they're playing for a championship, but right now you're playing awful. And if anything, those young guys might be the ones who show up with that eagerness, that urgency, that frenetic energy that you need to be a winning team. I just don't get this, man. Any thoughts from you before we wrap things up here, man? I think everyone's pissed off in Dub Nation. I think that's it.
That's the perfect way to sum it up. And I look at other teams in the past where they've seen those stars be great factors for them in the playoffs. You look at Bones Highland. He had a lot of minutes his rookie year. You look at Anthony Simons on the Portland Trailblazers and what he's done and the player that he's grown into. There's something about Bay Area teams, not just the Warriors, but something about them holding back these young guys that they're drafting and stashing them and not giving them enough minutes.
You're absolutely right, man. And Jalen Suggs is another one. It played 36 minutes tonight at 26 points. I mean, it's just, dude, stop like treading so delicately with these young players. Play them, give them minutes. They're never going to improve and reach their potential if they're not getting the reps. Anyways, here's the one great news I'll end the show on. And I don't know if you'll agree with me with this, Brandon, because we touched on this at the beginning of the show, where you feel like 15 games is where the panic button, you're going to start putting some pressure on that. But I really am not worried. It's just game by game, you're seeing this happen over and over again, and it's starting to really eat at my craw. And I'm sure a lot of other people feel the same way. With that said, I am in no way panicked. My strong feeling is February, March, this will all be something we're going to laugh at. I really do. I really feel incredibly strong that is what the end result is going to be. Somebody mentioned, by the way, Dwight Howard. I would love him. I think the Warriors could use him. Why not? It's almost like they're just like dismissing suggestions like that. Why? I don't know, man. Dwight Howard, look, I know he's not going to do much, but I wouldn't mind 5-10 minutes from him, giving some great defense, solid rebounding, some muscle inside that will actually intimidate other players, make them think twice about attacking the rim, stabilize your defense a little bit. I don't know, man. Do you like the idea of Dwight Howard? And any other final thoughts, Brandon, before we call it a night?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to disagree with you there on the Dwight Howard side. Right. Yeah, a couple of my friends was like, sent me that same article and said, hey, what do you think about Dwight Howard? And I'm like, we have Kevon Looney, who's done a great, solid job at the center position. And with Dwight Howard coming in and his ability to mentor guys, I think the Warriors already have that with the roster that they have and just the veterans themselves. But specifically at that center position, Looney can do that. And that would be taking away more minutes from Wiseman, where we want to see him more on the court to be able to succeed. And that's my whole thoughts there on the whole Howard situation. But I'm also like, if the Warriors really do get desperate, there's a guy that's still out there, has not signed with a team, and that's Quinndary Weatherspoon, someone that they waived early on in the year and could really be a factor right now helping on the perimeter.
Yeah, don't get me started on that. I loved Quinndary. I have nothing against Ty Jerome. I actually think he was one of the few bright sides tonight, but because that's whose minutes you would take ultimately would be Ty Jerome's. But I'll end on this note. It's not positive, but that Draymond punch, man, that really did sour things. You know what I'm saying? If this season ends up not correcting itself, and Randall Meals wrote the Draymond punch completely destroyed the team chemistry. All the youngsters no longer relate or care about the old guys when Curry and Clay and Kerr effectively stood behind Draymond. I don't know if I can agree with that. I don't know if I can disagree with that though. You know what I'm saying? Like it just sucks, dude. If the season does not correct itself, you have to look at that as being like the beginning of the end. You really do, because that was just such a crappy thing for him to do, man. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. I don't know. Any last thoughts, Brandon?
Yeah. Look, the Warriors' past championship teams always have been highlighted by the offense and the shooting, but in accompany with that was the defense. So this team goes with a defense this season. They need to figure that out, and that's how the season will go. If they can't figure out the defense, then the streak is just going to keep on going, in my opinion.
I agree, man. The defense has to turn around. Brandon, you host a fantastic podcast called Strength in Numbers as part of Rick Barry's house. Anything else you want to promote? You can follow Brandon Cadiz on Twitter at bcadiz0. That's BCADIZ0. Former play-by-play broadcaster for the St. Mary's Gales.
Yeah.
Is the podcast all you're doing these days? Anything else keeping you busy?
No, just my life consists of work, the podcast, and hitting the gym after work. So that's the life right now. But also want to shout out, since you mentioned the St. Mary's Gales. Want to shout them out, and college basketball season starting up this week, and hopefully my Gales can make another run at the NCAA tournament like they did last season.
There you go, man. I'll root for them, and yeah. Thanks for coming on, man. We'll hopefully get you back on again soon. And for people who love this live stream thing, we're back at it tomorrow. The Warriors play the Pelicans, and Kylan Mills is going to join me live right after the show. We're going to do this all over again, and hopefully I'll bring some additional stats as well. Because again, the only downside to doing these shows right after the game is I don't get a chance to do much research. But it's fun, dude. I love engaging with everyone in the stream. Brandon, thank you so much for coming on. I wish it was under better circumstances, but again, it's early, folks. All right. This team is a dynasty. Let's not forget big picture here. 4 titles in 8 years. All right. They won the title last year, and it was rather convincingly. All right. They never got pushed to 7 games in any of those series. Stephen Curry is still in his prime, kicking ass. Klay Thompson is going to get much better. Draymond Green, to me, is a huge question mark, man. If he can elevate a little more, I think the defense starts with him, where like if he's excelling to the max, everyone else feeds off that, right? But if he's taking a step back, then there might be a little cause for concern. But ultimately, this team has been through it all. I have faith they'll right the ship, but we'll see. I'm seeing people in the chat going, "It's time to panic, jump ship." On tomorrow's show, I'll come up with some possible trade proposals, especially if they play like this again against the Pelicans. Brandon, thank you, brother. Always a pleasure. Thanks to everyone for joining in. Anything you want to promote before we call it a wrap?
No, just Strength in Numbers and Rick Barry's house and the Locked On Warriors podcast, of course.
Absolutely. There we go, man. We'll be back at it tomorrow. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night. Later.